Hello everyone, today we are going to be reviewing Africa. Remember, we learned about West Africa, we learned about 3 empires, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, and I will cover all of that information in this video. Go ahead and subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and give this video a big thumbs up. So let's talk a little bit about the geography of Africa. So there are 2 main rivers in West Africa, the Niger and the Senegal. Let me get my pointer out here. So here's our Niger River. Our Senegal is not on here, but it's in this region. And those are going to be important, just as you studied with Mesopotamia last year in 6th grade. Whenever you have 2 rivers, that makes it very fertile land. And that's going to be a popular place for farming. So that makes this location in West Africa very suitable for farming, which is going to allow cities and towns to start existing. If you look at the map, you can see that there are different colors on the continent of Africa. The brown is going to be desert. It's specifically the Sahara Desert, which is going to make it difficult to trade across the Sahara and for really anyone to live in that area. The area we're going to be in is more of a savanna, which is grassland with trees. There will be some animals. So it is more habitable. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It is a better habitat to live in. They are going to have a lot of natural resources like gold and salt, and those are going to be valuable when trading. They are actually going to trade gold for salt. And you might think, well, why would you want salt? Well, you have to have it to exist as a human. It's something you need in your body. Don't ask me why, I'm not a scientist. And you can also use it to preserve animals, like to make jerky, or they didn't have refrigerators. They couldn't just slice it up and put it in the fridge. They had to preserve it somehow. So salt was necessary for that. And they had a lot of gold. And think about supply and demand. If your supply is huge, you don't care about it as much. So they would trade gold, which is something they had an excess of, for salt, which is something that they needed. Our 3 main kingdoms that are going to exist in this region are Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Now these existed at different points, but they all existed in the same area. So you can see we have Ghana right here. Then we have Mali, which goes all the way to the coast, and then Songhai is a little bit more inland. They are all going to be in the same general area because of those rivers that I spoke about. That makes it suitable for farming, and you have to farm if you're going to have a population. Also, they were kind of conquering one another. I'll get into the specifics of that in a moment. But they were fighting over the same area. And they had gold there, so people wanted to be there, which is why so many kingdoms are going to flourish in this same location in West Africa. Labor specialization, ladies and gents, is the reason why societies can advance. I've talked about this before, but if you're worried about growing food, you don't have time to do much else. But if you have people that are going to specialize in farming, you have advanced enough agriculture that it doesn't take the whole town. People can do it, like, one group of people can be farmers. That leaves other people to do different jobs. For instance, they can start making pottery. They can start making weapons. They can make boats. And all of those things would allow for advancement in society. So instead of everyone working on creation of food, we're going to have people that are able to use their talents in other ways. Dividing jobs allows these civilizations to flourish. Each family was kind of known for their unique talent. So you might have a family that was really good at making weapons. You might have a family that was really good at farming. And that's going to be what they focus on. And then they can trade with one another. Labor specialization is going to occur in every time a civilization moves from being nomads to becoming actual towns or cities. It's necessary to move on from that nomadic lifestyle to become a sedentary society. Gold, everybody. Why do we like it? It's shiny. People like shiny things. No, there's other purposes for it than that. If you're trading with products, like if you're trading a goat for a cow, those are difficult to move around. But gold is going to have a set value. So we know this amount of gold is going to equal 1 cow. That makes it easier to trade with. So that's why gold was desired by a lot of civilizations. Ghana's going to grow, Ghana, our first civilization, is going to grow wealthy from this gold and salt trade. They had gold, they were trading salt with people in the Sahara Desert. They would tax people every time they entered the kingdom for this trade. And so they gained a lot of money from just standing at the gate. They're the troll on the bridge. You've got to pay the fine to get by the troll. Also, there was a lot of gold. And think about supply and demand. If the supply is super high, the price is going to go down. But they did have a big supply. How did they keep the price from going down? Well, they wouldn't release all of the gold into the market. So they would keep it hidden, the rulers would. They wouldn't let everybody know how much gold they have, so the price would not drop. This happens in modern times with diamonds. So diamonds aren't as valuable as people think they are. Well, they are because that's how much we think they're worth. But really, there's more diamonds out there than we know of. But a company kind of hoards all of the diamonds to keep the price really high. Sidetrack, but there you go. Now you know it. Ghana was also religiously tolerant, and they're going to welcome Muslims to live in their kingdom. Now, the most popular religion is going to be just traditional mythology. So similar to Arabian mythology or Greek mythology, gods represent parts of nature. Obviously, Islam wasn't going to be super prominent in Ghana. It started in the 300s, and Islam didn't spread till Africa until almost the 700s. So there's a time difference there, FYI. Ghana was around for several hundred years before Islam even reached them. But around 1060, a group of people called the Almoravids, they were Islamic, and they're trying to expand their territory into Ghana, and they're going to attack Ghana. Now, they fail to conquer Ghana, but they do damage them. So they don't conquer them, but it's harmful to the society. And Ghana never truly recovers from this. And then also there's just some instances of food shortages, and they were relying too much on foreign trade rather than producing things themselves. And all of those factors are going to kind of contribute to the decline of Ghana. So after Ghana declines, there's about under 200-year time frame when there's not a real strong power. Mali's going to replace that, but for a while it became very localized, like we see when there's a breakdown of a large empire. But we're going to have this guy, Sundanida, who is from the Malinke clan, which is why it's Mali. And he is going to take control of what was Ghana. So by 1235, we're going to have Mali rise up and become the powerful kingdom in the area. And let me show you where Mali is on the screen. So it's much larger than Ghana, and it goes all the way to the coast. Mali is basically going to copy a lot of what Ghana did. So they're going to continue that gold and salt trade, taxing people as they enter and exit their society. And they're going to continue trading across the Sahara to northern Egypt, Egypt and northern Africa. As you can see on the screen, all of these red lines, these are all trade routes. So these are how people cross the Sahara. If you remember when we talked about Africa earlier this year, it is a very difficult journey, and if it wasn't for the use of camels, they probably wouldn't be able to accomplish this journey. So they're going to continue basically what Ghana did, and this is Mali starting in around 1235. So Mansa Musa is going to be one of the most well-known rulers of Mali. He ruled from 1312 to 1337. He is going to expand the empire to its largest point, and he's also going to change Mali from just, a trade center to making it a cultural center. So he's going to increase learning and culture happening in the main city, Timbuktu, and he's going to do this after he returns from a Hajj to Mecca. If you remember, a Hajj is a religious pilgrimage, and it's something that every Muslim needs to complete in their life, and it's a journey to Mecca. And remember, we just talked about Islam yesterday. They go to the Kaaba, they walk around several times, they do the necessary prayers, and that's one of the 5 pillars. So Mansa Musa is, obviously, if he goes on a Hajj, he is going to be Islamic, and he is considered one of the wealthiest people in all of history. And we know this because on his journey to Mecca, he goes through the city of Alexandria in Egypt, which is a very old, very established city. And he spends so much gold just by tipping people, by buying products, that he causes inflation. And inflation is when the money, there's too much money in the circulation, so it loses its value. So you had $10, you still have $10, but now you can't buy as much with it. You can only buy what $1 would have bought before. Sorry, that wasn't very well worded. I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, so he's going to cause inflation, and it's going to take Alexandria 10 years to recover from the inflation caused by Mansa Musa, by him just spending gold. So he eventually is going to make it to Mecca and complete his Hajj. And all this time, people are now have these ideas of what his kingdom must be like. This must be an El Dorado, which is like a city of gold. So this is going to kind of bite them in the patootie several hundred years later, because people are still going to have this rumor in their mind of Timbuktu and it being this very wealthy city. And the Europeans, when they come to Africa, they are going to look for this city of gold. Mansa Musa is the reason that the rest of the world started to notice Africa. Before, they didn't really know that there were a lot of large civilizations happening in Western Africa, just because they didn't have trade with a lot of them. West Africa was just trading with Northern Africa and Egypt, not the rest of the world. But Mansa Musa is going to kind of put them on the map. So that's Mansa Musa. When he returns from his Hajj, he brings scholars back. He brings culture back. He brings doctors. He's going to start universities. So he is responsible for a lot of the cultural achievements that we will see in Western Africa. Just as every civilization has to rise, they all seem to fall. So Mansa Musa's followers start losing power around the 1400s. And this is going to allow the Songhai Empire to expand. So Songhai rulers Sunni Ali and Askia Muhammad, I'm going to guess by their names that they're Islamic, are going to be warriors, and they're going to use their war canoes traveling along the river to conquer cities as they go along. So they're going to conquer Timbuktu, they're going to conquer Guinea, and they are going to create the largest empire that is going to exist in West Africa. So they defeat Mali, and they are going to take over and expand the Songhai Empire. And this is the largest empire that exists in West Africa during this point in history. They are going to be much more Islamic than the empires that came before them, and that is going to be a reason for their decline, as we get to in a moment. Okay, so because they are Islamic, they're going to start speaking Arabic, which makes trade a lot easier. Before, there was a big communication barrier between the West African traders, the Northern Africans in Morocco, and the Egyptians. They weren't speaking the same language. But now that they start to speak Arabic, it's going to make that trade much easier, and we'll see an increase in trade due to that. They're also going to have advancements in biology, medicine, law, and agriculture. Now that they speak Arabic, they're going to be able to view these other documents from societies that are written in Arabic, and they're going to expand these libraries in Guinea and Timbuktu. The Songhai Empire is going to end in 1591 because of Moroccan invaders. And the reason the Moroccans were able to defeat the Songhai Empire so easily is because they had guns and the Songhai Empire did not. So it wasn't really a fair fight. The Moroccans are, of course, all the way across the Sahara Desert. We don't know much about the empires that happen in West Africa, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai because of their oral tradition. So instead of writing things down, much of their history is passed down through songs and stories. And they have these people called griots that their job is to basically be the historian for the society, and they know all of this information. However, this information is easily lost if, the griot is to die and no one else was, they're learning all these things. And over time, some of it has been forgotten. So because of this, people have assumed that this society was not advanced, and that's just not true. Just because a society doesn't have a rich written history does not mean it wasn't culturally advanced. And that's kind of a stigma that a lot of people have attributed to Africa for a long time. So just because they didn't have much written history doesn't mean things were not happening. They just remembered things differently. And we learned about this when we spoke about Africa originally. But some people even believe that oral history is more culturally rich because you can put so much more into a story when you're telling it rather than when you're writing it, because you can't hear the human voice. You can't hear the inflection in someone's speech. You don't know how they intended the message to be received, like you can easily hear when someone is speaking to you.